Hello and welcome to my channel. I am a social science enthusiast who also enjoys international politics. In this issue, we talk about why India is lagging behind China in its modernization process. I know this topic may cause some people to be upset, but sometimes we have to face the truth and we have to see things from multiple perspectives in order to improve ourselves. One of the reasons that India is lagging behind China in its modernization process is because modernization comes at a very high cost, and that cost is often enough to destroy what is now traditional Indian society. The most direct manifestation of this cost is the issue of land. The modernization process in any country requires the construction of factories, supermarkets, hospitals, schools, public transportation, and other facilities, all of which require large amounts of land. Moreover, these facilities will not be built in the swampy desert, but require the best arable land. The population density in India is 464 per square kilometer. Most of the people are farmers, and their income from cultivation on the land is very low. Moreover, there are many tenant farmers in India who rent land from landlords and cannot afford to repay them in case of natural or man-made disasters. Therefore, tens of thousands of farmers in India commit suicide every year. If at this time, the land is expropriated by the government, the farmers are in a better situation because they have more or less compensation. The key is the tenant farmers, who are not compensated because they are not landowners. So once the land was expropriated, it was a disguised way to kill them. And that's why it's such a sight in India that the most opposed to land acquisition is not the farmers, but the tenant farmers. If you are interested in going to India to do some surveys of farmers walking in the streets, pay attention to the organizers behind them. 9 times out of 10 it is the landlords and the big landowners who mobilize, because they are the ones who want to raise the price of land acquisition the most. What does this mean? People's perceptions influence national policies and can affect economic development. How many farmers are there in India? More than 900 million, or 66% of India's population. How many sharecroppers are there in India? More than 200 million, accounting for less than 30% of India's farmers. How to stabilize them? Either they can continue to farm or they can leave. What does it mean to continue farming? For example, when South Korean companies intend to invest in India to build a modern steel plant, because of the need to acquire a large amount of land, resulting in strong opposition from the local people, and finally ended up in vain. For example, now Japan has won the bid for the Indian high-speed railway, but once the issue of land acquisition is involved, the whole plan is directly stuck. These farmers kept their land and continued to live their previous life. In fact, they refused to modernize. What do you mean leaving? For example, the land is expropriated and the peasants can't make ends meet, and then they are told that there are jobs in the cities, so go to the cities. Then these people go to the city, but their education level is low and many of them can't even read and write, so it's impossible for them to find a job in a modern city. So they get to the cities and they are also unemployed and end up gathering in the slums. How many people are in the slums? The 2011 count was 65 million, or about 17% of the urban population. At that rate, that number will reach 80 million by this year. In order to stabilize so many people in the slums without major chaos, the government needs to provide the slums with various policies to protect the people in the slums from still being able to live. For example, if a poor person lives in some unowned land for more than a few years, government will recognize it as his, and compensation will be given for demolition when the city is built through the slum. And simple schools, clinics, churches, etc. are built in the slums to keep the slums running properly. Every time when it comes to the general election, there are politicians who come to the slums to canvass votes, distribute free or cheap food, promise that they will be given more preferential policies in the future, etc. All policies, however, translate into a financial burden for the city. In other words, the cost of modernization is accepted by the rural areas and then transferred to the cities in the form of landless peasants who move to the cities to live in the slums, putting a heavy burden on urban development and subsequently slowing down the modernization process. If India really accelerates urbanization and industrialization, it also means that farmers lose their land at a faster rate and more people flow into slums. Once encountered with a relatively large crisis, it is easy to cause a decline in food production, an increase in urban unemployment, accelerated growth in inflation, and the lives of the ordinary people at the bottom become increasingly unstable. Therefore, it is not that Indians do not want to industrialize, it is not that Indians do not want to speed up modernization, and it is not that Indians do not want to surpass China, but his social structure is very fragile. As long as the process of modernization is slightly accelerated, he can hardly bear the cost. So what does India need? I don't know, and perhaps I will give an informative answer later. But the people of India must believe in themselves and believe that they themselves can win their own heyday.